The hardware, it's still work in progress. We have the concepts, we have the math behind it, the theoretical physics behind it, but the engineering part still needs to follow. So I think the main risk, like the real risk, is actually not a technological or technical risk. It's a human risk, the risk of procrastinating and doing nothing. There is no early adopter. You're either on time/early or you're late. There is no in between. Because the day quantum computers are here, it's too late to start migrating.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We have a very special conversation today as we are potentially on the verge of a pretty huge technological shift, one that could fundamentally reshape the digital world that we rely on every day. Encryption, cybersecurity, banking, digital assets, all of these systems that we take for granted may not be working the same way in the near future. And that is because of quantum computing. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Mohamed Bassiouny. He is the head of the Quantum Risk and Security Lab at QuRISK, a quantum risk advisory firm helping organizations prepare for the quantum era. We are going to break down what quantum computing actually is, what it could change, who should be paying attention, and whether networks like Bitcoin are ready for what's coming. Mohamed, hi, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for taking the time today.
Hi, thanks a lot for the introduction and for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Very excited to talk to you about, as I said, quantum computing. You are obviously deep into the quantum ecosystem, as you'll tell us. So, just to start with from the beginning, what exactly is a quantum computer, and how fundamentally different is it from the computers that we use today?
That's actually a very good question to start with. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions I hear about quantum computers is we are going to transition to quantum computers gradually, but the thing is quantum computers are some sort of machines that should be seen as co-processors. So the same way in classical computers you have CPU and you have GPU for some specific tasks, quantum computers or quantum processing units, QPUs for short, should be seen as some sort of co-processor, something that would be added as an extra layer in addition to the old classical computers we already know and have in data centers and at home. And the way quantum computers work is not just about computing faster, but it's about computing or doing things differently. So instead of working with bits 0 and 1, they work based on qubits that have the possibility of having a little bit of 0, a little bit of 1, having superposition and having entanglement. And these quantum physics properties allow them to have access to unlock a new potential category of algorithms that can be very useful and can be ran efficiently on a quantum computer, but not on a classical computer.
Okay, so let's say what kind of problems or algorithms or things of the sort can a quantum computer solve that classical computers can't?
Okay, so there are two categories in my opinion, or the way I'd split them is usually into two categories. The first category is what I call optimization or improvement algorithm. So, for example, maybe helping you find a drug combination faster for drug discovery and drug development in general, or some medical applications in general, some physical simulation. So maybe do what we call digital twins in a better, more accurate way, so you get better results. But also it's applicable in things like logistics and transportation. Usually when you use your GPS, it gives you what we consider an approximate solution, something that's going to be good enough to get you there from point A to point B in a reasonable time, but it's not guaranteed to be the shortest path. So quantum computers have the potential of finding the shortest path in a more efficient way, assuming the technology, the hardware itself, reaches the maturity. Of course, the hardware, it's still work in progress. We have the concepts, we have the math behind it, the theoretical physics behind it, but the engineering part still needs to follow. So the first category is what I consider optimization algorithms. And there is an even like a trickier category, which is the two specific algorithms that are Shor and Grover. These algorithms are a bit risky because they have the potential Shor specifically, has the potential to factor prime numbers, which means breaking the mechanism we use for cybersecurity in things like RSA and possibly also elliptic curves cryptography. And this is actually very relevant to Bitcoin because Bitcoin uses this kind of public key slash private key structure, which is actually breakable by Shor's algorithm. But there is also the second risk in the risky algorithms, which is Grover. Grover's gives, it's like brute force, but it gives an exponential speed up. So it's a lot faster than just doing brute force. So the reason why we say RSA is very hard to break, for example, or any algorithm is very hard to break, crypto algorithm is very hard to break, is because the way you will have to go about this to figure out the password of someone is basically try all the combinations in the universe until you get there, right? Which takes a lot of time. But the Grover can actually try a lot of combinations a lot faster. It is going to take a lot of time, but it's going to be exponentially faster than classical.
So technically feasible to crack.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously you mentioned many business sectors that are going to be impacted perhaps positively, like you mentioned the advances in the medicine world, and you're also touching on the risks, especially related to cryptography, Bitcoin, which is a big part of why we wanted to speak to you today. Before we talk about this, let's say, potential opportunities and risks, I just want to, you mentioned three words that I read a lot about whenever we mention quantum computing. You said qubits, you said entanglement and superposition. Could you explain these like in plain English?
So superposition is the fact that a qubit can be both 0 and 1 at the same time. But it's not exactly that it can be both at the same time, but it's the fact that it can be some sort of a probabilistic mixture. Like it's a little bit of 0 and a little bit of 1. And basically it can be in any state. So this is the idea of the superposition. It has a little bit of 0 and a little bit of 1 at the same time. Now the second thing is you asked about is entanglement. Entanglement is the fact that you can have two qubits correlated together depending on how you prepare the entanglement, in a way that automatically when you do an action on one qubit, it affects the other one.
And what is a qubit?
Okay.
For you it's trivial, but for people who wouldn't know.
Yeah, qubit is basically quantum bit, short for quantum bit, which is and the qubit slash the quantum, the qubit is the quantum equivalent of classical bits we use in classical computers. So you just added a q to make it quantum bit.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a tricky thing to build actually. There are a lot of approaches to build these qubits. So a qubit is the logical concept, just the same way we have bits that rely on transistors. And qubits are very, very hard to build. So there are a lot of physical ways to build this. This is why we have a race between the different deep tech startups trying to build the first quantum computers in different countries.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in the coming segments. So while most headlines do focus on the danger and the kind of the negative aspects of quantum computing, I want to start with the exciting part. So you mentioned the new drugs discoveries that could potentially save lives. I've read about how you can kind of invent or create new materials for construction and optimization. Can you talk about, from a practical sense, some of the biggest opportunities that quantum computing could unlock, and which industries could stand to benefit first?
Okay, so the thing is, there's a lot of work in progress for what we call quantum machine learning or quantum chemistry. Some results are kind of showing promise, but we don't have the machine to confirm this yet. And I strongly believe that once you have the machine, you will have a lot of researchers more motivated to mess with things and with different algorithms, and it will be a lot faster to just think about something and try it on the machine than just do a lot of complicated math behind it and think about the physical properties of qubits and estimate the resources with a pen and paper. The way we design quantum algorithms today is very, very, very simple in the sense, very basic in the sense that we don't really get to try them
So
on
it's
quantum
very
computers.
theoretical as well.
It's very theoretical. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's
And
very
expanding
theoretical.
the existence of the machine that can take it to the next level.
Yes, right now we have prototypes, or we have like machines that are not good enough to do a lot of
Mm,
meaningful things. We're starting to be a bit uh, at this frontier between, are we at the point where we have quantum utility, where we have quantum computers that can do something useful, or are these just still lab slash R&D prototypes? So if
okay.
you're designing some sort of algorithms that uses thousands of qubits, you don't have the machine to do that.
Mm,
The best, I think the biggest number of qubits we have, so it's a bit tricky because there are what we call logical qubits, which is the qubits you can use as an algorithm developer. And
mm,
there is what we call physical qubits, which is the hardware,
okay.
a number of qubits. And usually you need multiple physical qubits to implement one logical qubit. So without getting
Nice.
too technical about this, the idea is that qubits are very fragile, and you need to have some sort of multiple qubits to help you stabilize the
Okay.
computation.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Uh,
how
s-
far are we from because there's like kind of recently there was the famous Google also paper like
yes.
like how much of these papers are grounded in reality, and how much is like more sensationalistic clickbait?
Yeah, actually, what is the papers themselves, most of the time, like 99% of the time, from what I have seen so far, are very grounded and very reasonable. What is not grounded or reasonable is the share the LinkedIn post sharing the
Yeah,
papers, or
and yeah,
people jumping to conclusions just by reading the titles of the papers.
got
Most
it,
authors do not claim in their papers things that do not exist.
got
So,
it.
so to get back to a bit about how far we are, about to the question about how far we are, um, I'm gonna give you the answer of most people, most of the people who are building the technology. They are saying we might reach quantum advantage by 2029 or 2030. This is
Okay,
the
very
roadmap
recently.
yeah, this is the roadmap most big companies like IBM, Google have. This is the roadmap smaller companies like the startups we have in France and startups we have in other countries like the US have in mind. So
Hmm.
this is also the roadmap that is being encouraged by the national quantum initiatives in several different countries, including France. We have this 2030 French quantum strategy, encouraging and helping these quantum startups to reach this goal by 2030. And the idea is that you can see this as a race,
Yeah.
and everyone is racing to get there. So there's this also very recent US mandate, I think, that mentioned it's like a dual strategy where they have a publication on adoption of quantum resilient cryptography, but they also have one encouraging the development of quantum computers. So it's like, you know
Yeah.
what, we're developing the technology that breaks quantum, the technologies that breaks crypto, but we're also forcing the modern crypto to resist quantum at the same time. So
Okay.
it's really a race in all senses. So I think to get back to your question about which industry might see an advantage first, I think the financial sector have a
Okay.
big potential of seeing seeing what we call hybrid algorithms, where there is a big part of the algorithm that runs on a classical computer, and it does some pre-processing on the data and sends it over to a quantum computer, to a
Okay.
quantum coprocessor, and the coprocessor will do some specific analysis and statistics on the data and give you the result, and you integrate this in the bigger algorithm you're working on, and this will help you maybe make better estimations, like financial risk, like portfolio estimations, things like that. And I
Okay.
think there's a lot of banks active on this, notably HSBC. They're doing a lot of work on this. I'm mostly familiar with things happening in Europe, a bit less in the US. But
Okay.
HSBC in the UK are working a lot on actually on these quantum slash classical, what we call hybrid algorithms for the financial sector. In addition to a lot, of course, of academic research. Also, I think the second sectors that might see a lot of progress also, thanks to quantum computers, probably going to be physics, simulation, things like that.
which will have consequences in medicine and I think construction, new materials, or what?
Possibly, yeah. So I'm not familiar with the exact requirements of every specific domain, but I believe so.
Okay.
I believe medicine will come in like third or fourth on the list. But probably physics, then quantum chemistry, and at the end of the list, probably Grover and
Okay.
Shor algorithms, that the ones that are a bit dangerous and risky and might break might break classical crypto.
I want to talk about that, but just before, like I have two questions. So you mentioned the first sector probably will be financial services, banking. Just correct me if I'm wrong. So you're saying it's gonna help people predict the markets better,
It's gonna help. Yes, it might help the people working in what we call like statistical finance and other domains, working on things like Monte Carlo simulation and
Yeah,
things like that to estimate assets value, to predict future value of a market, things like that. Yeah, this might be a useful thing to them. So probably it's not gonna be very useful to like the very average user, but
okay,
maybe to advanced traders or to bankers working
understand.
working in the sector.
What
I
about?
think I think I think the effect of quantum is never gonna be very easy to see
Mhm.
for the end user directly, but they will actually kind of see the effect indirectly, and they might not even know it, but they
Yeah, so
will
it's kind
live
of
it.
under the hood, something
Kinda, yeah.
happening. Okay. Um, what, how do you see, or what is the connection between quantum computing and AI? Because let's say when we talk about AI has lots of potential also of
hmm
aggregating data, of simulation or stuff like that. How do you see them working together? If
So they're both um, let's call them emerging technologies. But the
Mhm.
thing is, AI is a bit older, like but maybe 20 years or 10 years older, which gave it a lot
Mhm.
more maturity in
Mm.
the technological sense. No, I think quantum is the next AI. Probably AI had its boom around 2020, a bit earlier. Quantum is going to have its boom about 2030. A lot of things, a lot of bubbles will
Wow.
burst by 2030, and probably quantum is going to have its boom about around 2030. And there is actually something that I was never able to explain exactly, but I discovered that a lot of AI enthusiasts are very interested in quantum as well. I think maybe
Mhm.
it just boils down to the fact that these people are open-minded to new technologies in general, so maybe that's why quantum catches their attention.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, the people working in quantum at Google, they're working in an entity called Google Quantum AI. So
Okay.
for both it's the same entity working both on doing research on both quantum and AI.
Mhm.
And there's also a possibility that actually quantum and AI can go together hand in hand. As I just mentioned, there's a lot of research to build what we call quantum machine learning algorithms, and there are libraries on GitHub for the people who like to code and to play with Python codes that are actually giving some sort of algorithms mixing quantum properties and classical machine learning that we know. So I'm not an expert on machine learning, but I see a lot of research on this topic. I strongly believe this is going to be an interesting topic in the upcoming years.
Oh, for sure, like two seemingly very powerful tools, and the entity that is going to be able to maybe harness
hmm
both of their power is probably going to reap tremendous benefits. Let's talk about the risks because the risks are there. You did mention it already.
hmm
Um, Without getting too technical, but how does quantum computing pose a challenge to today's cybersecurity? What exactly can be broken, and what are the consequences that say on users, whether they're individuals, businesses, even governments, critical infrastructure such as airports, etc. What sectors were you in, and what is what is the main risk?
Okay. So I think the main risk, like the real risk, is actually not a technological or technical risk. It's a human risk, the risk of procrastinating and doing nothing.
Okay.
This is the biggest risk. Not doing the right the effort at the right time to actually move and do what you need to do, especially if you work in cybersecurity in a banking institution or something like that, or some other critical sectors.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do to have this on your to-do list and start acting.
Okay.
So this is really the biggest risk. Now, if we're going to talk about the technical risks from an operational point of view, the first risk you should consider is what we call the harvest now, decrypt later risk, or the harvest now, decrypt later attack. This basically means that some evil actors may intercept your connection. So today, when you connect on to any website or you do some transactions, you have your communication secured by what we call TLS protocol. You know, this little padlock you have in your browser showing that
Yeah.
the connection is secure. This
Yeah.
thing is secured using a mechanism that is breakable by shore, a mechanism that relies either on elliptic curves cryptography or RSA. It uses TLS, and this is what we call asymmetric cryptography. This thing is breakable by shore, and the bad evil actors will intercept your connection, clone your data, and keep copies of your data stored until they have the technology, be it quantum technology in 10 years, or maybe even some other technologies that we haven't even heard
Mm-hmm.
about yet, and decrypt it later. So this is the whole idea behind the harvest now, decrypt later. Bad actors capture the encrypted traffic, they store it encrypted, they can't read it right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they decrypt it when in 5-10 years, or
So
however long it takes when the technology is mature.
suppose that data gets decrypted. What is the information or that these actors can access?
Whatever was in that communication. So if you
The
are,
credit
for
card
example,
numbers,
yeah,
the
exactly. So
passwords,
if you are
everything.
exactly. So to give some examples, if you are doing a transaction online, there is your credit card number. So some people might think, okay, it's not a big problem. Probably when quantum computers are here, it's going to be in a couple of years, my credit card number will no longer be valid. But the highest risk is not about your credit card number or like
Mm-hmm.
the small informations that are secret during some time but have a limited secret time, but it's about long-term secrets like communication between government agencies, like your personal identifiable information, like your own medical records,
Yeah.
your own passwords that a lot of people don't change that passwords regularly. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to not change your password if you're comfortable with the way you came up with the password and know you will not forget them. Probably you should be using a password manager, but if you keep them in your head, okay, I can understand you don't change your passwords frequently. So maybe such information will be revealed as well if maybe you have some sort of online file where you keep your passwords, things like that. And a lot of people, you'll be surprised, but a lot of people really do that. But there's also all, as I mentioned, all your medical records, your financial transactions. You paid X amount to someone, and maybe you don't want anyone to know what you're doing with your money. It's your right. It's your private
Privacy,
information.
of course.
Yes. And there's also, of course, everything related to government IDs, your and the transaction the data being transferred from different embassies across the globe, from different government agencies, from hospitals, from banking institutions. All these things have to remain confidential. Like
But they're being harvested now. All of this
Exactly.
is potentially being harvested. But that's obviously a lot, whether on the individual side, but also, like you mentioned, communication between governments, within governments. So we're talking about national security measures as well. Clearly, obviously, the governments and the large institutions are not procrastinating. They're taking this seriously. They're probably developing, protocols
They
to.
are actually now developing strategies and roadmaps to start adopting this. There is a regulatory framework. So there was this coordinated EU roadmap that was published last year in June, requiring most institutions working in sensible sectors, in sensitive sectors or critical sectors, to actually migrate their most sensitive assets by 2030 and the rest by 2035. This is on the EU level. There is this. There have been the same thing in the U.S. in different countries like India, all the G7 countries, Japan, China,
Yeah,
all
everyone
different,
is taking it
yeah,
super seriously.
everyone is taking it super seriously. Even in Qatar and the Middle East, they are starting to have this discussion about
Mhm.
PQC.
So you have to be an early adopter, let's say, in that specific
In this very specific
world.
thing, there is no early adopter. You're either on time/early, it's the same category, or you're late. There is no in between. Because the day quantum computers are here,
Mm,
it's too late to start migrating. And it is
got it.
already due to the harvest now, Decrypt Later. It is already late to start migrating.
Got it.
Whatever data was already publicly exposed on the internet, yes, encrypted, but
But already has
potentially
been
decipherable,
harvested.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
it has been already harvested. So you
That's
are
kind of
already.
scary. But Mohammed, it makes me think of something like when you mentioned earlier transactions, credit card numbers, password, etc. Because that was a kind of my cue to ask you more specifically about the Bitcoin network and other blockchains as well. If your credit card is stolen or your information is leaked, you call your bank.
Yeah, you report that the card was stolen and you request a new. They block it and you request a new one.
Exactly. You can get
Yeah.
refunded. So you're kind of
Yes.
protected by the issuer, by the institution itself.
Mm-hmm.
You're just a
Yeah, you
user.
have
In
the
the Bit
chargeback mechanism and everything that comes with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. In the Bitcoin world, let's say, suppose there's some info, you lose your Bitcoin. There's no bank, there's no customer service, so it's very but the risk and the protection really falls on the individual or on the. So I want to talk more about what's the vulnerability, what's the quantum vulnerability of Bitcoin today. How secure is it at the same time? Just, like a few questions, obviously, merged together. What steps can users do to protect themselves today? If you can just share your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So when it comes to crypto and Bitcoin, I think a big part of the responsibility shifts to the end user as opposed to the classical banking where the bank is 100% responsible. Crypto users are usually a bit more advanced, and there's also the fact that the mechanism is a bit more
Irreversible.
distributed, the more
Oh,
irreversible and more distributed. But I was mostly thinking about the fact that it's distributed, so you need a lot of coordination as opposed to banks where if one single national entity decided, all banks are following. You can't
right.
have it this way in the world of crypto.
They
You can't.
upgrade their system. The bank is one system, and then everything is downstream of that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
If it is decided from the higher ups, or even from the nationalists as a national strategy, all
Okay.
banks will follow. That's it.
Okay.
It's as easy as. Of course, it's not easy, but it is. The decision part is easy. The operation part is not easy.
Got
but
it.
of course, even the decision part has a lot of technical challenges. But yeah, even then, it's still kind of feasible.
That's
From
where,
a
let's
theoretical
say,
point
a
of view, in
centralized
Bitcoin, it's not the
system.
same.
That's where that's one of the advantages, let's say, of a centralized system in that
Yeah,
regard.
exactly.
So Bitcoin
Now we're
being the
talking.
decentralized protocol that we know, just before you mentioned, like, what are the risks? What makes Bitcoin vulnerable today? And in what ways also is Bitcoin not vulnerable today to quantum computing?
Okay, so Bitcoin it already evolved over the years. So
Right.
the main thing is that now Bitcoin may have, depending on your wallet and things like that, and your the transaction dates, there might be different vulnerabilities. But the main one is the fact that Bitcoin uses what we call elliptic curve signature, based on elliptic curve, and as I just explained, Shore can actually break cryptography based on elliptic curves. So the problem was this, that this is what you use to sign. You have your public key, you have your private key, use elliptic curves to sign, but what if this entire root of entire concept that you rely on for trust in the blockchain is actually hacked? This is a big problem. So there have
You mean the
been
privacy of the anonymity of the private key?
not only the anonymity, but actually the fact that someone else can actually spend your money, can use your money, can spend your money. So this is a very big risk, right? No, there have been I think earlier transactions where the addresses are not even hashed and are on the network.
Mm.
And I think now they started to use hashed addresses, and there are even propositions to implement quantum resistant methods for this. But the biggest risk is that there are a lot of coins that are relatively that are relatively easier to hack or that are vulnerable. Specifically, I think the number from Project 11's report was something like 6.7 million Bitcoin.
Wow.
So
Are,
like
are these all coins like
and these
dormant
are
coins, or like what makes
and these,
them vulnerable?
I think so I think the report mostly mentioned the fact that they are mostly dormant, but the biggest risk about these is not that they are dormant. It's the fact that they use the old BTC style exposed quantum vulnerable
Like the legacy addresses.
method. The legacy exactly. And so these are, so if I remember correctly, I think these are the things that were before the SegWit soft fork around 2016. So basically things from 2012 that haven't migrated yet. These are the ones I think also that are exposed, if I have the dates right. And the problem is that, as we just explained, this is not a centralized network, right? It's decentralized. So who's the actually the entities that can decide what to do with this with these coins? So the developers, the community, it's a bit tricky, right? And actually most Bitcoin users, the way they see things is, we want decisions from anyone other than regulators. But also regulators see this as a big risk, right? So that's why they try to get involved in regulating Bitcoin and blockchain in general a little bit, so they avoid these things becoming very decentralized when it comes to risk management. So so when it comes to Bitcoin risk, there's two proposals that are fairly recent to actually address this. And there's one proposal called I think BIP 360, which suggests a way to structure the signatures in some sort of hash trees. So we use hashes. We don't reveal the public keys, the addresses, the wallet addresses, etc. In a very easy to hack way, but in a trickier way, called a Merkle tree. And the way this works is basically to the best of our knowledge for now, is non-breakable by quantum computers, unless of course someone finds some algorithm later to break that, be it classical or quantum. But for now we have no way of breaking this, so at least that's a good sign. And there's another proposal that is more organizational than technical, which is setting some sort of deadline, a sunset or something like that, for assets that are quantum vulnerable. So the big risk with assets that are quantum vulnerable on Bitcoin is, imagine quantum computers are here. Okay, imagine we are in 2030, we have mature quantum computers, some evil hacking group managed to get their hands on access to that quantum computer capable of breaking Shor, of running Shor to break elliptic curve signature. What are we going to do about the 6.7 million Bitcoins? They can use the quantum computer to take all this money and spend it however they want. And this will change the balance of things. Like, this will entirely change the balance of crypto market, because you'll have a massive amount of money moving, right? And this usually, when things like that happen, the conversion rate, like between euro and Bitcoin, or dollars and Bitcoin, etc., it varies drastically, as you may already know.
Of course. Yeah. Big fear, liquidity, etc.
Exactly. So if big amounts like that move all of a sudden, this will cause chaos. So one suggestion is, okay, let's set a deadline and then isolate these assets and say, okay, you can no longer spend this money. If this money is not dormant, and if you own this money, start moving it now.
To a quantum resistant addresses.
Exactly.
Post SegWit.
Exactly. To post SegWit, post Taproot, even post whatever other proposals like the BIP 360 that may start. So the BIP 360 and 361 are both, I just mentioned, are both drafts now. They're not even like agreed on. Yes. So it's a very controversial topic, right? It requires a lot of coordination, a lot of agreement between the different developers of the Bitcoin and the people hosting the Bitcoin nodes, etc., the entities hosting Bitcoin nodes. It's a lot of work, a lot of controversy, but something has to be done, right? So there's this technical aspect to migrate to Bitcoin, and there's the fact that no matter how hard you try, there will always be some assets left exposed or like some remaining exposure. And so some decision has to be made about these. Either you isolate them, there was some other suggestion I saw in a recent publication by an independent advisory board from Coinbase. And one thing I read in this in the papers I published is they're suggesting you set some sort of a limit. So to avoid breaking the system, you will never be able to spend all this money like in one single transaction or at one day.
Right.
You set some sort of limits where you can't move everything at once. And maybe when we start seeing things moving, this will trigger some sort of alarms, and you can start to try to make sure that the right people, the right owners of this money are the ones really moving this money.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Because at the same time, I understand the obviously the need to find solutions, but at the same time, some of these proposals seem to clash with the ethos of what Bitcoin is. Like, say what
Yes.
you own. If you own the keys, you can move whatever you want
So
at any
that's
time.
yes. So there's actually exactly one thing about this. So there's this proposal about, okay, let's freeze the assets, and whenever some legitimate owner of some of that money shows up, they're going to have to prove they own this money, and we help them recover it. So one big problem with this is, okay, so how are you going to do the verification process, which means you're going to ask for ID, you're going to basically everything that is not Bitcoin, the Bitcoin culture, right?
Absolutely.
The main reason behind it was anonymity, privacy, etc. So there's a lot of work now on what we call zero knowledge proofs to prove ownership. So basically some sort of way for you to prove that you own this money without revealing too much of information that is confidential. But also it's still work in progress. It's still
But Mohammed,
like ideas.
sorry to cut you off. Today, this zero knowledge proof is the private key, is when you sign, is when you prove that you own the coins, right? This is the way that
the concept of zero knowledge in general is basically revealing to someone that I have an information, but you are still left with zero knowledge about the information. This is the entire concept in crypto in general. I can tell you and prove to you that I have something without telling you what is it, that I have some information without giving you the information, revealing publicly the information. Now, there's also another very strong proposal that says after some sort of deadline, you actually destroy this money to avoid the risk of anyone hacking this money. Because the risk is if you keep the money, if you do some sort of quarantine or like you isolate this 6.7 million vulnerable Bitcoin, quantum vulnerable Bitcoin, you might have to split the network, right? Because, okay, so you need a part of the network that still handles the legacy part, but also you will need the part of the network, of the blockchain that handles the new format. So it's a bit tricky to do this.
That's a soft fork, right? That would be a soft fork, at least.
So at least that, of course, there will be a soft fork. That's sure. But hopefully there won't be any hard forks, because even this is a very tricky topic, and I think the Bitcoin developers will do everything they can to avoid this. But if you need to quarantine the money, they're gonna need to find some innovative way to keep the old mechanism supported, to quarantine the old money while accepting the new transaction format.
You even mentioned early in the conversation about, let's say, the difference between all the theoretical quantum studies and ideas and concepts versus the practical hardware that exists today that can implement or not all of these ideas. And so it feels like lots of parts are moving. There's lots of unknowns, let's say, but it might change very quickly at the same time.
Yeah,
you said 2029, 2030.
Exactly. Yeah. So there are lots of unknowns, but the thing is, as I just mentioned, given all the different things, the different parts that are moving at once, you can't, and how big the risk is, you can't just uh, decide not to
Yeah,
do
pick
anything.
one. Yeah, I get it.
There's a very big cost of inaction. If you
Yeah.
don't do anything, the moment you figure out slowly after years of experimenting what is the
Mm,
right approach, it's gonna be too late. So the thing is, it's yes, I understand it's a big project. It's a big migration project in terms of let's find a way to make Bitcoin quantum proof. Okay, now we have the algorithms, but which signature scheme are we going to adopt? How to do this? How to get the developers to agree? Yes, it's a lot of work, and maybe as you saw already, in the Bitcoin histories, there have been improvements because the first choices made weren't the perfect or
right.
the best choices for the network for the future, right? For the future of
Right.
of the blockchain.
Hmm.
So yes, okay, things can be suggested at some point. They may look at like a good decision at the time, and later on we will discover that you know what, we can do better, so let's do better. And I think this is what we got, what we have to do
Yeah.
in not only in blockchain but in everything related to cryptography, because of two things. First of all, quantum risk is not the only and unique risk that will ever exist. It's
Right.
not the lost risk, it's not the lost potential threat, and probably it's not going to be Sears the only one that might actually be very, very important for cryptography, right? Things like that change all the time. And the second thing I wanted to mention is the fact that given that quantum threat is not the last thing, and that things, the state of the art in cryptography in general moves a lot,
Hmm.
there is this concept that we call cryptographic agility. That means that you always have to be able to migrate the quantum, to move the cryptographic components to some other mechanism without breaking the entire system and having to rebuild it, right?
Okay.
So this actually applies not only to blockchain, but also to design choices in general. So in a lot of what we call hardware security modules, HSMs, for example, the crypto is integrated on a very specific chip, and the chip is integrated on the motherboard of that machine, etc. Okay, so, and it's not patchable, easy to patch. It's not designed with upgradability paths in mind, things like that. So these things have to change. Even developers, once they develop some sort of maybe some communication software, things like that, they have to have modular design practices
Hmm.
on mind when they do their designs, because your cryptographic choices are not the everlasting good choices. That they will
Yeah.
have to change at some point. So this is the things that actually blockchain needs to do as well, and other cryptocurrencies need to do, and they are already aware of this now and they're starting to do it. Uh, Whatever choices they make now are not the final choices, and they're gonna have to
Yeah.
change them. But the risk is so big, so we can't afford to just sit comfortably uh, and watch the quantum computers being built without doing some steps to at
Of
least
course.
do the best, to use the best methods that we know today. Maybe
Yeah.
in 3 years, Bitcoin, there will be another BIP, I don't know, 500 or something,
Yeah.
to suggest another way for signatures that is even more quantum resistant. So
Right.
maybe there will be some, because of some disagreement on the best way of doing things when it comes to quantum proofing.
Okay.
Maybe it will happen in
And
some
in the
sense.
meantime, Mohammed, what kind of practical steps can Bitcoin users already take today to make sure that their coins are as quantum proof as possible?
Probably not leave their coins very dormant, follow the news, see, not procrastinate when there are updates to their wallet software, things like that. Um, Follow the news, follow if you are using something like, probably your life is going to be a bit easier if you're using something like Binance, like Qcoin, like any of these,
Centralized entities
centralized
again.
entities
They will
again,
do the
yes.
work for you. Mm.
Exactly. They will do, yeah, they will do a lot of the heavy lifting for you.
Okay.
But if you are one of those avid crypto users, having your own hardware wallet, handling your own crypto by your own, you really have to keep an eye on the news, on what's happening, on the suggested updates. And
Hmm.
who knows, maybe if you have a saying, check the
Yeah.
improvement proposal, and maybe you have a saying, share your opinion, share what you think is the best course of action for things to happen, because the Bitcoin challenges are not only technical but are also organizational.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
No, go ahead.
no, I was just saying it's not only the for Bitcoin, of course, it's also valid for
Other
cryptocurrencies as well.
blockchains and Mohamed, I want to be mindful of your time. I know it was already late where you are when we started, so I don't want to
No,
take
it's
much
fine.
longer of your time, but
It's fine
thank
for me,
you.
don't worry.
I want to ask before we talk a bit about QuRISK and also the work you do practically. I'm interested to know more about that. In terms of game theory, because you mentioned already, you said how important not only large institutions but governments are, like how much they are aware of how important it is to be agile and to not wait. Do you know like which countries are leading the quantum race today, and what could happen if one country reaches a major breakthrough, let's say years before another one? Would you think that would be possible, and what kind of impact would that have?
Okay, so I think we're a bit back in the arena of quantum computers and building the quantum computers, or are you talking about
Right.
race to adopt the post quantum
No, I'm talking
race to
more
build
in
quantum
general.
computers?
In general, let's say
Okay.
who owns, who has the
Mm-hmm.
quantum weapon first. Like if
Yeah.
any government obtains it, let's say years before another one. Do you
So
think that's feasible?
there's
That's possible, and what would happen?
so what I can say is I strongly believe no one has quantum computers today,
Hmm.
uh, because well, there are challenges related to physics and to engineering and to what we call enabling technologies, basically the things you use to build a quantum computer, right? And the state of the art of this technology in general kind of leads us to believe that probably no one, probably no, like I say this was a grain of was a big you should take it with a grain of salt, but I can't guarantee that, of course,
Just that,
but probably no
how
one
would you know?
has
How
it.
would people know? How would we know?
I mean, that's the big risk about it, right? You won't know if someone have been doing this for the last 20 years, have been making their very own. No, it's a bit like an extra paranoid scenario,
For
but
sure.
maybe some entity, some government lab or something like that have been working for the last 20 years on their very own supply chain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so they have mastered and perfected the fabrication process of all the equipment they need for quantum computers. They build their own quantum computers. They have their quantum computers now, and they're already actively using them to decrypt data on the network.
I doubt they would do a
It's
LinkedIn or Twitter
not
post about it.
definitely. If they are some sort, probably if they are some sort of government agency or something like that, probably they won't
Mhm.
publicly announce it. But I
But
mean,
still, you think you have your doubts on that being the case today.
it's highly unlikely, but it is not, of course, impossible. Nothing is impossible, right? So I believe we probably would have known a bit about it, or would have a bit more doubts, because you
Hmm.
see how the components in technology improve in general. Like,
Yeah,
for example, if you told me someone was able to brute force RSA in the year 2000, I would say probably this is not possible. We all know the speed of
got it.
CPUs back
Mm.
then,
Yeah.
and probably it wasn't possible. Now, if you told me the same RSA of the year 2000 is now breakable using today's CPUs, yes, I will believe you. I know the state of the technology allows it. But what I'm trying to say here is that my point is that the physics behind it, the technology, all these things, they are usually some sort of a big collaboration, big supply
Hmm.
chain,
Mm.
components coming from a lot of different countries.
Yeah,
And it's probably highly unlikely that someone has everything under control and builds their
got
quantum
it.
computers without us knowing, but it's not impossible. Now, moving to the concrete public information, okay, that we have, assuming nobody built their miraculous quantum computers behind our backs. I think the countries leading, well, the EU is doing some great work on this.
Hmm.
Notably, countries like UK, France, Netherlands, Germany is doing some startups working on quantum computers as well. But I think France is France and the UK have the and the Netherlands have are the most active ones in the EU when it comes
Okay.
to building quantum computers. I think we have at least like 6 startups building quantum computers in France.
Oh wow, the actual computer, the
The actual
actual quantum
computers, yeah,
computer.
all of them or today have some sort of prototypes.
Okay.
Some of them are even already delivering quantum computers to big data centers and HPC centers like Condela, for example. They are delivering quantum computers capable of doing something like 12 qubits. It's not a lot, but
Hmm.
it's the milestone that counts. It's the
Yeah,
idea that
yeah,
we are already working on packaging all the science into one rackable machine,
got
some
it.
sort of rack format that you put in your data center. And
Yeah.
this is kind of the idea that we have for quantum computers for the time being. They're
Hmm.
going to be in data centers and accessible via cloud. You're probably not going to buy your own quantum computer and have it at home. They are fairly big, by the
Mm,
way.
mm,
So even so, unless you are like some like very big company and you need your own quantum computer hosted in house, and the biggest problem with this is the expertise it requires for maintenance. So if you have a quantum computer here, every time you need an upgrade, you need some additions, you need some improvements, some maintenance, you're gonna have to get some people from the company or the startups that made it, and they were gonna need to work on it in your company, and maybe they don't even have the resources. You're gonna need to send it back, so it's a bit tricky. And of course, there's a lot of work that I'm less familiar with on the in the Asian market, notably in
yeah.
China
Hmm.
and in Japan. But I'm a lot more familiar with what's happening in Europe and the US and Canada.
So you are in France. QuRISK is a
Yeah,
French company. How old is the company?
we recently celebrated our 5th birthday in March, so
Nice.
QRISK is officially 5 years old.
Amazing. Congrats. Can you
Thanks.
tell us like what is the company's mission and what are some of the services that you provide?
Sure, sure. QRISK is we position ourselves as a company at the, let's say, the as a bridge between the tech itself, the quantum tech,
Hmm.
and the end users and the general market. The idea is that we are a risk consultancy firm specialized in risks related to quantum computers and cybersecurity.
Okay.
Our focus is, as I've explained, bridging the gap. So we have two specific consultancy offers that we propose to our clients. The first one is adoption, assistance in the adoption of post-quantum cryptography. Basically, we help you plan how you are going to integrate post-quantum cryptography in your classical infrastructure. So post-quantum cryptography, there are no quantum components to add in your infrastructure. It's of course a big project still, but not as big as integrating
Hmm.
quantum. We help you design your methodology or a roadmap. We help you starting from the very basic awareness for the technical slash cybersecurity teams, for the C board. So basically, we have inside QRISK what we call quantum risk, the QRC lab, the quantum risk and cybersecurity lab, where we focus on understanding what are the PQC solutions, so that we can feed this information into our consultancy practice, validated suggestions to our clients. And we follow the methodologies developed by the QRC lab I lead to the consultancy practice. So this is our first offer, a cybersecurity offer.
Hmm.
But of course, there are risks related to quantum computers, quantum projects themselves, not only quantum computers, actually. Because in the domain of quantum technologies, there are three technologies. There's quantum computers, there's quantum
Hmm.
communication, and there's quantum sensing. We focus
Okay.
mostly on quantum computing and quantum communication, a lot less on sensing and quantum sensing. And the idea is that there's a wide spectrum of risks related to a quantum project, notably not only technological risk, but like supply chain risks, HR risk, not having the right resources. If you are building a quantum computer, maybe you have the knowledge about the technology, but there are some sort of administrative slash operational risks that you need to handle. So we help with
Hmm.
that as well. We do consultancy on that aspect, but also for end clients. If you are maybe, for example, a startup building a quantum computer and you're trying to sell your like access to your quantum computer to some sort of innovation department in a big company, we kind of help you actually bridge the gap between you and the big company. Or if you are a big company, innovation department, looking to adopt quantum solutions, want to test some quantum algorithms, we help you find the suitable quantum architecture, because there are different architectures to build quantum computers, and they don't all have the same maturity for all use cases. So it's a lot of work on finding the right use cases, being ready, preparing their use cases and the algorithms before quantum computers are here. And the reason why a lot of companies, especially the big ones, are investing in quantum, despite the fact the machines are not that mature, but they are spending money on developing use cases and algorithms, is because they don't want to lose the competitive advantage. If they wait for quantum computers to be here, to start doing the work, they will be late compared to the ones that already
Absolutely.
started.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's mostly
So,
about a competitive advantage. While the quantum risk part, is mostly about competitive advantage, I would say. And the cybersecurity and post-quantum practice is mostly about, well, you need your data to be secure, so you don't really have much of a choice now.
got it. And that was obviously the message that you have sent throughout this episode. Is it's coming, it's almost here. You cannot afford to stand still. You have to be informed, depending on how involved you are, and if you own digital assets, you need to be aware of the risk, and you have to start acting accordingly. It must be pretty exciting to be at the forefront, to be working at the forefront of this big technological shift. Long hours as well, but very exciting, I'm sure.
It's very exciting, very stimulating. You get to see a lot of technology moving a lot. So the thing is, we also at QuRISK, we have what we call the Quantum Safe Sentinel, some sort of a newsletter where we share news related to quantum threat and quantum cybersecurity and post-quantum cybersecurity. We share the highlights every month in plain English. I am the author of this newsletter.
Nice.
And the amount of news that I have, that I see every day on the things happening, is honestly amazing. When you work in this field, you start to build this kind of timeline where you actually see how things are progressing, and you see the same researchers later publishing a year later results on this. You see the papers that came out in 2022 on a specific number of on a specific qubit amount estimation that estimated 1 million physical qubits, but now we have estimations that are estimating a lot. Exactly, you have estimations now with a lot less resources.
So you can also have your own timeline based on that. I get it. That's
exactly,
that's
and you
cool.
get to have the insights to build your own timeline and to see, do I really believe in this, or actually things are really moving. So it kind of looks reasonable to actually estimate.
I'll make sure to ask you to share the link of the newsletter so we can include it in the show notes. Mohamed, thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure.
And wish you, Jimmy, Paul, and the rest of the QuRISK team a lot of success in the coming months and years. And we'll be in touch. Maybe we'll have a part 2 when you can come and update us on
hopefully
on the latest.
Hopefully, probably things will move before we even know it. Maybe I think the one risk I think about when it comes to blockchain and to other fields in general, is no matter how good the roadmap we develop for the migration is, there will always be some remaining exposure by the time quantum. It's reasonable to expect there will be some remaining exposure by the time quantum computers are here. So actually, the whole exercise extends beyond just technical migration and planning, but there's also crisis management, because what are we going to do when quantum computers are here and we haven't finished migrating yet?
For sure, because a block space is limited on the Bitcoin blockchain, and a block every 10 minutes. So obviously, if all the UTXOs were to move, so let's see what happens, and we will definitely have you back in order to tell us more on that. Thanks again, Mohamed, and talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot for having me today. Talk to you soon. Bye.